more on your money and how to try and look after it. Cautious consumers. Australians are beginning to be known as that, certainly in the last little while. Cutting back, as we discussed with Chris Richardson, on dining out and splurging at the shops, all of that. It might have something to do with a flatlining property market, a new flood levy, a proposed carbon tax and high utility bills. Might have something to do with all of that, mightn't it? And right now you're probably asking yourself, how can I stretch my money even further? Well, I thought we'd ask this question of this fella. He's been in to see us before in the studio to help out with the inquiry. Wilson Luna, the co-author of Your Family, Your Money, Real Money Advice for Families, and he's sitting opposite me. G'day, mate.
G'day, Tim. How you going?
Good. Thanks for coming in again. And you're happy to take calls from the listeners if they call you?
Absolutely, mate.
So 13 13 32 if anything occurs to you that you'd like to ask Wilson here. Look, this economy is, well, it's not a mess, but it is all over the place, and it's very hard to get a handle on it, isn't it?
I think the hard thing about the economy at the moment is we've got a two-speed one, where basically we're saying, okay, our mining from those figures, we're doing really well, yet you look at the rest of the industry and you're going, okay, hang on a minute, they're a bit struggling, you know?
Yeah.
And from a family side of things, you've got a situation where we've got full employment almost, but most people are saying, you know, what's happening here is I'm not earning enough anymore and everything's going up.
Yeah.
So from a data perspective, it can be read a few ways, and unfortunately for mum and dad out there, they're struggling, some of them.
Yeah, and the family is saying, or the breadwinner or breadwinners are saying, look, every cent we earn goes. Yeah?
Absolutely, they are.
Yeah. So, look, what do we do? What do we do? But how do we cut back on expenses and try to get a bit more money back into the pocket?
What I'm going to try and do today is sort of go over the three main areas. See, wealth creation as period is when you look at it cleverly, you go, as complicated as some people try and make it, it's really this simple. It's how much you earn, try and earn more. Yep. Try and spend less, and try and invest what the difference is. That's it. Wisely, right?
Yeah, that sounds simple, yeah.
Most people, including myself in the past, have spent most of our time giving advice on how to invest the money or how to cut back on it. Are they important areas? Absolutely. Yeah. But what more and more people are wondering at the moment is, how do I earn the extra amount of dollars through the time I'm currently allocating? Because the biggest problem at the moment is I haven't got any more time, yet I wouldn't mind earning a bit more. Yeah,
people say, look, I can't work anymore, I just can't.
Yeah, so what we'll do, we'll cover off, I think we cover off how to save some money straight away, because that way we can sort of loosen it up a little bit and hopefully provide a bit of buffer for families. The best three ways to go is hit the big three ticket items. Number one, your mortgage. Hit your mortgage hard, because the difference between the top mortgage and, I suppose, an expensive mortgage can be anything up to 1%.
Right.
If you think about the average mortgage, 350,000, you're already saving about $3,000 there.
Yep.
So shop it around. You know, go to your mortgage broker, shop it around. When you find it, go back to your bank and see whether he's willing to match what you find. That's usually a smart idea as well.
Okay.
B, hit your groceries. Groceries is a huge expense, and unfortunately we end up spending a lot of it on wastage.
Yes, we do.
So do a stock take on things. Work out, a lot of it is pre-planning. And when I say pre-planning, what I mean is whatever you've got in the cupboards, make sure you use them for the next meals. And get into the habit, and we did this at our house, and it took a while to get used to, but start pre-planning your meal 7 days in advance. That way, when you go to the shops eventually, you know exactly what you're buying, and you're not buying on impulse, you're buying on what you're going to actually use.
Yeah. We throw away mountains of food. We do, don't we?
Ah, absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. Extraordinary amounts. And when you do go to the shops, 3 golden rules. 1, go on a full stomach. You go on an empty stomach, you're in history. Keep the kids at home. Personal experience there. You'll end up buying stuff you really don't need. And thirdly,
or want.
Or what, exactly. And thirdly, in the checkout aisles, don't buy anything. That's where all the markups are. And they kind of leave you waiting there just so you sort of buy some extra stuff. Third area of concern is energy prices. I mean, you look at energy across the board. Petrol, electricity, etc. Have a look around, because a lot of what we find is a lot of families that come to us say to us, look, you know, we thought there was only one energy provider. Funnily enough, they're not sure. You look and Google it up.
That's
it's comparables.
Yeah.
And some of them for certain areas really give you some massive savings. So hit those areas, have a look at comparisons, because you can save a fair bit, especially if you start working out as well when the off-peak rate comes in. We did this comparison once in one of our books, and what we found was you can actually wash clothes whilst you're asleep, because the actual washing machine washes it for you.
Yeah, do it 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So you're probably paying on-peak rates when you could be doing it off-peak. So change your habits in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's simple things, and you've only got to think about them, and they do make sense. I think washing cold water is another one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the washing machine's not heating up, using all the energy to heat up. Now, asking for a pay rise. In this current environment, a lot of people are reticent to do that, I'm sure. How do you work out, A, your value that you think you are to the employer, and then relay that to him or her?
Yeah, look, that's the... We actually spend, funnily enough, and we started this off in this regard where we just talked about the savings that we can make.
Yeah.
The second side is the one where I believe most families can make a difference in their finances.
Yeah.
Because if you can increase this side of it, you're made. And unfortunately, as Australians, we're not very good at negotiating.
Yeah.
We're not like,
No, we're not.
I
We're
travel
not.
a fair bit in Asia and they're great at it. Yeah? It's
Yeah.
not customary to us, so it's difficult. But when it comes to pay rise, the main thing is this. We always go around, I hear hundreds of people coming up to me sometimes saying to me, at workshops, etc., and they say, look, I put in all these hours, I put in this work, and my first question is always this. I know you know what your value is, but what is it to your employer?
Yeah.
So the most intelligent way to do this is to sit down with them and say, listen, what do you value in my time? Because unfortunately, we might be doing a lot of things during work that aren't adding value to their KPIs or their key performance indicators. So before you go for a pay rise, a good idea is to have a pre-pay rise meeting. Sit down with them and say, listen, if I was to allocate my time most efficiently, what would be the 3 areas you'd want me to allocate them for? And what kind of indicators can we work toward that if I hit these targets, we can really talk about a pay rise?
Yeah.
At least that way everyone's on the same page.
So rather than the employer saying, look, you need to be more productive, you ask the employer, okay, how do you want me to be more productive?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a very good idea, that.
Because a lot of times when we talk about value, unfortunately, we're in an I society, and I mean, for years, many people will say, look, this is what I do, and I work this many hours, and in a lot of cases, the hours we're working aren't doing what they want us to do. So a really smart idea. Here's a couple of tips. Number 1, ask them for their priorities. Number 2, when you go in for a pay rise, make sure, try and go in there before their budget cycle is. Every single company's got a budget cycle. Some people say, is it pre, 30th of June or post 30th of June? Some companies are international companies, so they might go January to January.
Yeah, sure.
So find out when their cycle is, their financial year is, and then also find out when they put in their budgets or forecast for the next year.
Yeah.
By doing that, you jump in ahead of time, and if you are going to get a pay rise, they can include it in that budget.
Yeah, right.
The problem if they've already made that budget, it's pretty hard to get a pay rise when it's already in there.
And it's nearly June 30.
Yes, exactly. So start asking now would be a really good idea.
And be very careful how you are. Now, this came through, and question without notice, from your folks during the week, that Australians need to be ready for another recession. You really believe that's going to happen? Because we spoke to Chris Richardson, he's not sure, but it's not a finite science, this, is it?
This is the biggest problem. This area is really, really complicated because of the data that you get and how much you can actually incorporate into it.
That's right.
Here's the thing. As a standalone issue, the Greece scenario at the moment, obviously if Greece was to default at the moment, the problem would be the knock-on effect to Portugal, etc. But even as a quantifiable number, $1.2 trillion under normal times wouldn't be such a huge figure, funnily enough. But on the back of the global financial crisis, it is. Because most countries are at their limit of their lending capacity, countries like America, etc. You add on to that the knock-on effect, the fact that in the States at the moment, their growth prospects aren't looking as good as what we thought they were. Yep. And you add on the challenge that China might be going into some inflationary problems. Yep. And suddenly that knock-on effect could be pretty huge. And for us, this is the way that we'd probably feel it. The cost of funds would probably increase.
Yes,
so
that's right.
It could knock on to our interest rates.
And as Chris said, you honestly just don't know.
You don't. No. It's prognosticating. Yep. It could end up just being a tremor.
Yep.
My thoughts are always this. When you're not sure if it's a tremor or not,
be prepared.
Caution.
Yeah.
Be prepared. Have a couple of months there in the tank. You have 2-3 months of living expenses on the side.
Yep. Because
if something does happen, at least you've got some time. If for whatever reason you get a redundancy or for whatever reason interest rates go up, you've got some buffer there to play around with, which is really important in time for that.
All the more reason to get organised and cut back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, mate. Co-author of Your Family, Your Money, real money advice for families, and it's real, good, honest, basic advice. Wilson Luna. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for coming in.